Hi, my name is Pat. Welcome to my channel. Today I will be doing my June wrap-up. So for the month of June, I finished 12 books, but I DNF'd 2 books as well. So we're gonna get into that. I did read all of the books that are on my TBR except for part of the series that I DNF'd. So the first one that I finished is Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. I enjoyed this one so much. We all know how the Titanic ended. I prepared myself. I thought I did, but I still cried a lot. I rated this a 4.25 out of 5 stars. We are following Valora, who is a circus performer who was planning on going to the Titanic with her old employer who had died. Fortunately, she wasn't able to get into the Titanic because she's Chinese and she decides to get to be a stowaway. Her brother is also in Titanic, but she hasn't seen her brother for years, her twin brother, and she was planning on going to New York City and starting this whole journey with her brother as a circus performer and maybe get a better life. And obviously we all know how the Titanic ended. It was really great. I enjoyed following our main character, Valora. She is very smart. She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it. She's such a strong character, so I really enjoyed following her. Okay, so the next ones are actually e-arcs that were sent to me by Penguin Teen. So I've been wanting to read them actually really late. Some of them have already been published, so we're gonna go through them one at a time. So the first one that I finished is From Little Tokyo with Love by Zara-kun. I rated it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed reading this. This was a lot of fun. We're following our main character, Rika, whose situation is very similar to Cinderella. She lives with her 2 cousins and her aunt, who takes her in after both her parents have passed away. She grew up believing her mom is dead, but one day during the Nikkei Week festival, Grace Kimura, who is a very renowned Japanese-American rom-com sweetheart, she starts putting clues together that maybe her long-lost mother isn't actually dead, with the help of up-and-coming actor Hank Chen. And obviously this is story of a family and also some romance, and I enjoyed her family, her cousins and her aunt, and she's not really like abused like Cinderella was, and her cousins are actually really nice to her and she considers them as her sisters. And I enjoyed the exploration of the relationships that she has between them and also the people in her community, because they're a very tight-knit community in this town where she lives. So I love the exploration of that. The romance is cute, but then it kind of felt like it escalated a little bit too fast. And the main premise of the story is with her mother, but we don't really get to see her mother up until the very end. And she just kept finding out clues and learning for herself what was going on and about her life, but she doesn't really like get to meet her mother until the end of the story. And I don't think that's a big reveal. I wanted to really like this book. I wanted the exploration more to be about her mother and what really happened. 3.5. I still liked it though. It was a lot of fun to follow her, and still the exploration of the other relationships that she has, like the family that she's growing up with, was a lot of fun. It was really good. The next one that I finished is We Are Inevitable by Gail Forman. This is a cute and heartwarming emotional read. We are following our main character whose family owns this used bookstore, which he decides to sell because of financial constraints. He lives with his father, who is pretty disorganized, and it's an exploration of their family, but also family because he meets this old classmate of his high school who is wheelchair bound and introduces him to this music scene, and meets Hannah, a really attractive, talented musician. But also their next door neighbor, the Lumberjacks, decides to turn their store into their pet project. Keeps protesting, like telling them, no, we don't have the money to pay for it. Why do you keep doing this? And they were like, no, you don't have to pay for it. Hey, let's plan this out. It was really funny. It deals also with really heavy topics of grief and loss and also addiction, so content warnings for those things. Again, I really enjoyed the exploration of him as an individual dealing with grief and loss and how their world had changed after the loss of his brother, and then also the results of that loss to them as a family. So I really enjoyed this one. It was, again, pretty emotional for me. There are a few moments that were really difficult to read. 4 stars out of 5 stars. Next one is Etherbound by Emily K. Johnston. I rated this a 3 stars. I enjoyed this one. I expected to like it a little bit more. It's a lot shorter than I thought, and so I was a little bit unsure going in that I might not like it, but I did like it, but there were some parts that I didn't really enjoy. It's a YA space adventure. We're following Pent, who lives in this aircraft with her whole family, and she has this gene mutation. Because of this, she is seen as like a waste of space, a waste of food and air, and she's treated very badly with her family. During one of their like layovers, she decides to leave and run away, and then she meets these Brannick twins, who are these heirs to the space station that they were doing like a stop at, and they decided to work together, team up to achieve their own individual goals. It's There were certain aspects of this book that I wish were explored a little bit more. The first part of this book was really good. I really enjoyed the building of the world, but then kind of like slowed down and kind of stopped. There were just a lot of elements here that I felt like were introduced, but were not really like fully explored. I get that it could have been explored a little bit more, and then a sequel will be more about that, but we're not really getting a sequel for this one. Things kind of happen really fast, really quickly. I just wish there was a little bit more to this one. So 3 stars. I enjoyed this one. It had a lot of potential. Okay, the next one that I finished is Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons. I rated it as a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Such an adorable and moving read. We are following Spencer, who moves to another school after experiences bullying in his old school in the wake of his transition. He moves to Oakley, which is known as the most liberal school in Ohio, and he meets more accepting classmates, great new friends, and he also gets a potential position in their soccer team, and he meets Justice, who might have a more than friendship relationship with him. Again, another great exploration of family. I love his family here, especially his brother. Their relationship is so good, and there is also a lot of exploration when it comes to religion and transitioning, and the LGBTQ plus community and the family of Spencer, who are definitely accepting but are also getting used to having a son who is trans. And I also enjoyed the romance here because they definitely faced a lot of real struggles in the relationship that they have. So again, my favorite moment here was when Theo, Spencer's brother, they were outside and talking. It made me cry when Theo expressed his admiration for Spencer for being brave, and I don't know, it was just a cute moment. The next one is my first DNF, which is Girls at the Edge of the World by Laura Brooke Johnson, and it's a YA sci-fi fantasy with LGBTQI plus representation as well. And I DNF'd this at 60% because there wasn't really anything happening. It had a lot of potential. Like, the premise is very interesting. It's kind of like at the end of the world type thing. Like, there are it's very similar to like the 12 plagues in the Bible. So there are different storms, they call it, signaling the end of the world, essentially. Like, the last storm is going to be like a big flood. And we're following flyers. They're acrobat on silks, and they were supposed to be guaranteed a place in this boat. But because they didn't have a lot of space, it kind of got removed, and they're trying to figure out how to get into this boat again. At 60%, there wasn't anything happening. We were still building up to what was happening, to what the plan was, and to what was going to be going on. And I wished, like, this whole thing, it was great, but it was already at 60%. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. It's taking too long. I love the build up, but I felt like it could have been like compressed a little bit. I mean, I enjoy the characters, but it wasn't enough for me to keep going with the story because I felt like it wasn't really going anywhere already at 60%. So unfortunately, I had to DNF. Next one is Eat Your Heart Out by Kelly DeVos. I rated a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a YA zombie apocalypse story, and we are following Vivian, who gets sent to this weight loss camp. So trigger warning for that one as well. There's a lot of fat shaming and fat phobia in here. I didn't expect this one to be as gory and as dark as it got. I thought it was gonna be like, this really like funny mostly satirical take on like zombie apocalypse, but ooh, this was a lot more emotional, had a lot more gravitas because there's also family in here. We are following Vivian as she tries to survive along with her campmates, friendships, romance as well, but also like I loved following the individual characters here because they have their own stories and how they got there at the point in their lives now, and I really cared about their journey and what they were gonna do and what's going to happen to them. And again, I cried here, especially at the end, and I want a sequel where they get revenge for all the things that I went through here. I just wanted them to team up, take these people down because they didn't deserve what happened to them. It went to places that I didn't expect, but I loved so much. So 4.5 out of 5 stars for this one. Next one is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Again, another one that I didn't expect to love and to get as dark and gory as it did. We are following Jake Livingston, who can see ghosts, and usually he's able to kind of help them move on, but he starts seeing this ghost of Sawyer, who was a troubled teen who went to his school and killed 16 kids. He starts to do things that are outside of Jake's knowledge of the other world. So he has certain rules that he knows that ghosts can and can't do, and Sawyer starts to break all of them, and he gets into danger in his friends and his family, and so he tries to protect them and save them. And I love following as he tries to survive and save himself and his friends from this really dangerous ghost. This had a lot of really difficult, heavy topics. So again, trigger warnings for this one. There is sexual assault, sexual abuse of a minor, gun violence, and some gore. and blood. So just check out the content warnings for this one. It deals with the reality of teens who are learning about themselves in an environment that's not very supportive and very caring. And we see a parallel in Sawyer and Jake's stories, and how it's kind of like a comparison of are going through some things that are similar but also different, and also the environment that they have is different, how that can affect them. I enjoyed this one a lot, the exploration of that one. But the one thing that I would like this to have a little bit more, I hoped, was the story on how Jake came to his abilities and how he has learned about his abilities. And I hope that there's going to be a sequel for this one where we explore a little bit more of his abilities and more about the ghost rules and stuff. So yeah, 4.5. I really enjoyed this one. The next one is Souls by Megan Wolters. This is the first book that I finished for the Indie Author Month that I joined also for this month, for June, and I rated it as a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I really enjoy this one. We are following our main character who sells her soul to save her husband, and she lives in the city of souls, and they have these rules that they cannot break. If they break, they get consumed, which is like actual like death for them, and she breaks all 5 of them. And this had like, the first part was a lot of fun because it really made me feel like the character did. Like there's some disconnect there after her accident. There's just some things that were off, some things that were like really disturbing and off about her, about what's happening to her, and she like doesn't really understand, like she doesn't realize fully that there's something wrong that's happening. It's not connecting in her head. Like she realizes that there's something wrong, but she's not fully connecting it in her head. And then we go to the City of Souls, and they have these rules and the way they live. I had a lot of questions. Like they were still sleeping, but they weren't eating, and they still get winded, but they don't actually get tired. It's kind of like, how does that work? Because they're supposed to be souls, so how do they have like constraints physically that you would experience as, you know, someone with a physical body? But again, yeah, those are just some of my questions. The story progressed, I got even more confused with like how the world worked. There were lions, I didn't really get what the lions were for. The MC, the main character, definitely had a lot of questions that I had asked myself and she asked them, but there was still a lot more that I felt like she didn't realize was wrong, but we didn't really like get answers for, or get explanations for, or like kind of get a vague idea on how it works. So again, I really enjoyed this one, but there was like a few things that just didn't make sense to me, so I was confused. Like the second, like the end of it kind of went over my head. Like I didn't realize how the ending happened, like how we got to the ending. Like I didn't really understand like the whole aspect of that. So yeah, again, I really enjoyed this one, but there were some elements that I was very confused with. I think it was supposed to be kind of confusing because there's more books in this series. So yeah, 3.75. Still a lot of fun to read though. Next one that I DNF'd is The Librarian by Chrissy Sloat. I was prepared to love this because it's following a main character who gets transported into this book and romance ensues. The character had a lot of internalized misogyny, and then there's here in this book I didn't really like the 2 other friends that she had here. I didn't like them, and also the romance was a bit quick, kind of insta-lovey, and the whole idea of her being transported through the book was vaguely explained. She realized at one point that she didn't really understand how this whole thing was working, but she was so upset that she was just like, whatever. Even after she was told that there were like some dangerous things that could happen to her while she's doing this, she was like, whatever, I'm upset, I'm gonna go and see the guy that I like. And I'm like, after you were told and you got upset and you even blamed them. And again, she likes to blame other people for what's happening to her. And I get that people could have explained it to you better, but like just the way that she blames, like, how dare grandma do this to me, or how dare you do this to our family? And I'm like, girl, chill out. There was this conversation that she had with her friend because her grandma owns a library and she was given this library by her grandma and she didn't want to run it. And her whole entire plan was like to hire someone to have it run by them, move back to California and finish her schooling. That was her entire plan. And then her friend was like, well, I know that you don't really want to take care of the library. You probably just want to have somebody else take care of it. So why don't you just sell it? Because that's your whole, and you know, because you want to go back to California. And then she was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, what? That was your entire plan, this thing, the entire time. So why are you saying now that it's not your plan? She was just upset by the truth that her friend gave her. And I'm like, her friend said some things that were kind of, you know, wrong. But still, for her to say that, no, that wasn't my plan. No, it's exactly your plan. That was your plan. You were going to have this library run by someone else because you didn't want to do it. You want to go back to California and finish your schooling. And it's very vague, like the whole time traveling thing. There was a mention like equation to it. We didn't really explore the equation, and then suddenly it was like science and magic. And I'm like, huh, sure. But again, I wish I like this one and I wished I finished this, but I couldn't. I DNF'd it at 60% as well, so fortunately I didn't like that one. Okay, the next one is another one for the author month, Born of Water by Elnor. I rated this one at 4 stars. It was a lot of fun to read. This one has really good mythology. The main characters are great to follow. It's very interesting and unique, the mythology, and the main character and her mother are very interesting to follow. And right off the bat, her like group of friends of the main character that we're following, like I already got the idea that we're all gonna be getting their own book, which has fantasy elements to it. She's the one with the water like element, but her other friends are gonna have like their own story. So I was very intrigued by that. It's like a really unique group of friends, and I was really invested to getting to learn their stories. I actually have bought the rest of the series here. The story went in unexpected ways for me and included a lot of elements that I didn't really expect. So it was a lot of fun to read. I also enjoyed romance, even though it's definitely not central into the story, but again, I really enjoyed the entire romance of them getting to know each other, etc. It's still mainly about the main character and her growth and the decisions she will have to make and her relationships with her mother as they go through the changes that are happening to them and to her. Next one is Switch by A.S. King. I don't know what to rate this one. I liked it, but I was very confused at it by the end, so I don't know what to rate it. Maybe more like the 3 stars thing, but it was very confusing. I feel like this book was just like symbolisms on top of symbolisms, and I was just very confused. Like there's a lot of things to dissect here, even though it's a very short book. So the main premise of the story is that the time has stopped, and in the house of this character that we're following, Truda, her father starts building boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes for the Switch, and they were not allowed to touch the Switch, and she was like curious about what the Switch was going to do. But again, there's a lot of things happening here, and I was very confused. I feel like, again, there's a lot of symbolisms here. The time stopping is also symbolic, but also kind of realistic or real in this setting. I feel like it represents something, but also is happening in actual reality here. I feel like it's a whole metaphor for family and what their family has gone through and is going through, and the healing that they have gone through, and the trauma, etc. It's a lot of symbolisms. I was very confused. There are some parts that are told in like a roundabout way, like with, again, symbolism and stuff, but there were some parts that were like straight up, just, you know, like straightforward with no any like representations whatsoever, and I was confused. I was like, wait, are there symbolisms here as well or not? Like it feels like an actual like chapter with no symbolisms, or am I not seeing the symbolisms? So I was very confused with this one. I felt like the story it was telling was about the family and, you know, their healing and the trauma that they went through, but I lost it. So I wanted to like it. I felt like I'm just too dumb to really like fully understand this book, so unfortunately I can't fully like rate this anything because I was so confused. It's not bad. I was very confused, but also not in a super bad way. Anyway, next one is Cursive by Lish McBride. 4.25 out of 5 stars. This is a gender-bent retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I love this one so much. I loved the romance, and I loved the entire found family group thing as well. I love this one because, again, it's gender-bent. The main female character is the one who is a beast, and the male character is actually not from a nice family. He's actually a family of con artists. His entire family is gifted with different things, but him specifically is gifted with charm, so he can like charm the pants off anybody, most anybody. So again, it's a whole group of them also trying to maneuver the politics of finding a husband for our main character, Merritt, to break her spell. Tevin was hired by Merritt to help her like sort through the suitors, make her find someone who's the most compatible to her, but also will not break her heart, or like. Also really love the way this was written, especially when it comes to Tevin charming other people, but especially Merritt. He's not exactly trying to charm Merritt because his charms towards Merritt doesn't really work. I love when they're kind of interacting and he says something like charming or something like very flirty, but it's actually genuine, and I love the way he says it. I'm like, oh, they're so cute. I love them. And even though this is them finding out like from a list of husbands who could be like with Merritt, I love that there's really not one character who's like a true 100% villain from the suitors, because they're all like really decent, very nice to Merritt, and they don't treat her with any like prejudice because she's cursed as a monster. I really enjoyed that one. I really loved it. Again, each character feels very multidimensional, like they have their own stories. I love this so much. 4.25 out of 5 stars again. And the last book that I finished is Never Catros by Jessica Goodman. This is a YA thriller mystery. I rated it as a 3.5 stars. This is following two sisters, the Steckler sisters. They are very popular in their school for being one of the top runners in their team. They're very competitive. A new girl moves into town named Mila, and she actually is also a really great runner. She actually beats them in running, and one day she goes missing. But before that, she was starting to get like really close with both of the sisters. The sisters are estranged. They used to be very close, but with everything that happened to them, especially with like a competition as runners, their relationship have gotten kind of strained. And I really enjoyed the exploration of the sisterhood between the two of them, because I have a sister myself. Even though we never really like competed or anything, we obviously have like a really complicated relationship. And I love seeing how they used to be very close, became a certain relationship, but they're both yearning to be back to having that really good, wonderful relationship they have with each other. They're both heavily pressured and stressed in different ways from different people in their lives that really affect them very heavily. And there's a lot of like non-communication, miscommunications here, which I personally don't enjoy in books, but this one I understood and I really like empathized with. And then Mila's character, I wish she was built a little bit more, because I felt like her character was just used as the girl who went missing. That's it. We get a little bit of her, but we're in the aftermath of her going missing. A lot of people are suddenly talking about how nice she is, how kind and how smart, but we don't really see that. And I felt like she was just used as a plot device for this one. I wish we spent a little bit more time with her. The ending was underwhelming. Instead of showing us what happened, it was told to us. I kind of guessed who it was. I kind of realized, oh, it's whatever it was, with the same exact reason as to why they would do what they did. But again, I wish it was shown more than it was told, especially if it was with Mila's perspective. I feel like it would have been a little bit better. We kind of just got a chapter of it and it was done. And I was like, huh? That's not... I wish there was more. There are a couple of trigger content warnings for this one. This is what I get usually with thrillers, like when I read it. They're very underwhelming. Twists and turns are not very surprising, or in the way we got to like the whole story of what happened really was underwhelming. This is how I usually am with YA thrillers. So this one, unfortunately, was average for me. I love the exploration of the relationship between the sisters and the family as well, and the friendships as well too, with the team, with them being like really competitive with each other. So those are all the books I read for this month. Quite a few books, and I do have a few more books that I do want to read next month, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books, what you thought of them, and I will see you on the next one.